Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Good's first webinar for 2022. So I think it's fair to say that diversity and inclusion, or D&I, has been at the forefront of the board agenda of major corporates in the last decade or so, and has become interwoven in a company's fabric to become part of its DNA and culture, part of its corporate governance, of its risk management, and ultimately part of its purpose. Recent research on D&I has shown that companies that incorporate D&I in their strategy and performance metrics have displayed increased revenue, profitability, and talent retention. However, as we're starting to see movement and results on a global scale, there is still a lot of work to be done, particularly in Mauritius, where I feel we're still treading quite lightly and timidly around this vast topic. So what we hope to achieve in today's conversation is to have a deep and meaningful exchange around the topic of D&I. I hope we will be able to go beyond comfortable and socially acceptable definitions of diversity and inclusion and embrace some of the more uncomfortable realities around D&I, particularly in the Mauritian context. In my mind, at least, diversity is not just about gender and skills. I think those are the comfortable definitions around diversity. Diversity is also about age. It's also about ethnicity. It's also about socio-cultural backgrounds, about disabilities, about life orientations. And it is my firm belief that it is only by acknowledging and embracing those realities that we will truly be able to effect meaningful change. So with that introduction, if I may turn to Aruna and ask you, what in your mind does board diversity and inclusion mean, and what is it not?
Thank you, Joanne. It feels great to be amongst you tonight. Let me just thank the Board of Good for having me anew as a panelist. I also do feel very privileged to be on this webinar with two other gentlemen who I hold in high esteem. They have each helped me along my career path in their own way. I had the opportunity to work with Afza on a number of transactions. Gerald, on the other hand, was extremely supportive in my early days as chair of the NCCG at a time when the going was very rough. To come back to your question about diversity and inclusiveness on boards, I think to sum it up, diversity is the what question, and inclusion is the how question. As you said yourself, diversity focuses on the makeup of the board composition and would touch on such matters as disability, life orientation, gender equity, race, religious beliefs, and age. Inclusion, on the other hand, would focus on the extent to which the presence, contributions, and perspectives of the different groups of people are valued and integrated in the boardroom discussions. For instance, a workplace where many different genders, races, nationalities, and identities are present, but only the perspectives of certain groups are valued or carry any authority, there would be diversity, but not inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this great introduction, Aruna. Perhaps, Afza, if I can turn to you now and ask you, do you agree with this definition that Aruna gave of what is diversity and what inclusion is?
Thanks, Johan. Thanks, Board of Good, and thank you, Aruna, for the nice introduction. I mean, it's very difficult to speak after Aruna because she has covered all the persons. She knows what she's talking about. There are a couple of points I would like to add to what she says. I think there's one word between diversity and inclusion, because we tend to use both in the same breath, diversity and inclusion, and that is the word tolerance. Because unless we have tolerance, we will never have inclusion. We can accept the concept, but that doesn't mean we will go for the inclusion. And I think for a country like Mauritius, we still have some way to go on the tolerance side first. There's a lot of education to be done. And because the tolerance is not there in certain part of the definition, we have some issues on the inclusiveness. I think the concept is there. The second issue we have, if we look at it on the Mauritian perspective, we tend to associate people more with religion than with ethnicity in Mauritius. And I think the correct definition there, you know, we talk about ethnicity, but it's more about, here we differentiate more on religion. The third point is, which we tend to miss, and I've seen it at various board levels, you need diversity of mind. Because you can have people of different gender, different ethnicity, but if you put 10 people from Harvard Business Review running one board, it's clear the agenda will be heading in one direction. You won't have that diversity that you are looking for, because the mindset is the critical component in taking a board forward. That's all for me.
Thank you very much, Afzal. And Gerald, in your experience, do you agree with this, with these issues and challenges that Afzal has raised in terms of what a typical board looks like in Mauritius and whether it is diverse enough and inclusive enough?
Yeah, hi Joanne, hi everybody, and I will echo Aruna's feedback on the NCCG, and Aruna was actually chairing that committee. And I really enjoyed working with you, Aruna, on that corporate governance committee. Afzal, of course, we know a long time, so always great to have Afzal together. I think some of the people need to go on mute, please. Yeah, Joanne, definitely I will echo both Aruna and Afzal points. I will add maybe the same subject, but in a different manner, the diversity of skills, and probably a criticism of our landscape here in Mauritius on boards is that we have too many of the same people from a skills perspective. So typically a dominance of finance people, financiers, and clearly not enough diversity in terms of you know, environmentalist, you know, ESG is a big subject nowadays. And clearly the boards need to include people with different skill sets, and very often that skill set will come with the different backgrounds. So you know, we've moved away from what was typically a sort of white male-dominated boardrooms across a lot of countries, including Mauritius. It's good that we've come a long way from that. But in preparing for this session with you, I was looking on the EY intranet, and interesting to see some statistics that I will share, which are not great, by the way. I was expecting better. The FTSE in the UK, the FTSE 100, has a 38% woman representation on boards, and the FTSE 250, with a wider group here, only 35% of board members are female. So I think even in the UK, where you know it's been a subject for quite a while, I think there's still a lot of ground to cover to reach the famous 50-50 sort of balance between male and female. But it goes beyond that, as you say. You know, we, for example, in EY, we now talk about LGBTQ, which is, you know, 5-10 years ago, it's something we would not even pronounce anywhere close to any boardrooms in terms of having a diverse and inclusive approach to different backgrounds on board. So I think, in a nutshell, we've come a long way. It's still, you know, it's there is no board that I know of today that doesn't have any, for example, female representatives. But clearly a long way to go in terms of backgrounds. So that's for me.
Thank you very much, Gerald. And I think you've nailed it on the head in terms of, you know, I think as I mentioned at the beginning, people automatically think of gender when we talk about diversity, but it's so much more than that. And, you know, I talked about uncomfortable realities, and particularly in the Mauritius context, we tend to tiptoe around certain things. We feel that there are certain words that we can't say out loud, but I think it is important to embrace and confront those realities to be able to effect that change. So if I may turn to you again, Gerald, and ask you, why do you think DEI matters in business? I think I mentioned at the beginning, research has shown that it improves on profitability, on talent recruitment and retention. Could you share your thoughts on that? Why does it matter in a business?
Yeah, Joanne, as you say, we also carry empirical evidence at EY that demonstrates that diverse boards have better results, not just financial results, but have better performance of share prices, are more performing, and therefore it's proven today that having D&I at board level, not just at board level, but at senior executive level, does bring better performance and results. But you know, life is not just about financial performance and results. I think there's a lot more to it. And you know, basically half the planet is female and male, and it's only fair that we should have a fair representation of female on board. I think even though it's not the only subject, you know, the male-female mix, I still believe it's probably the one area where there's more work to be done. You know, there's a lack of female representation, both, in fact, in Parliament. You know, it's been a subject in Mauritius in Parliament to have a better female representation. But at board level as well, I think there's at least some listed companies have a long way to reach the parity of 50-50, and I think parity is something that we should all aim for. So why it's important? It's because it's, you know, we are diverse. We come from different colors, different religions, different sexual orientations, and so on. And I think it's for the better of the community at large to have a fair representation of different backgrounds on boards and executive levels as well. I think I'll stress on that, because the board is just for one layer of management, but you have the executive, the people who actually do the work and carry out the action, where it's important to have also fair representation, both in terms of racial mix, of a religious mix, of male, female. At EY, for example, D&I has been a big subject for many years, and in fact, we're working continuously towards a fair, what we call ownership, female ownership of our firm. And we are not yet there. It's work in progress. Different countries obviously are in different places. The Nordics, for example, are very, very good in you know, reaching this parity, because probably we focus on it much before us. But for example, in EY Mauritius, we had less than 10% of female ownership 5-6 years ago. We've more than doubled that, but you know, I can't be sitting there and saying proudly that, you know, we have 25% of female ownership. It's not good enough. You know, it should really be 50-50, which is a target that we have. Yeah, it really matters, and I think you know, we talk a lot about ESG, about triple line reporting, and it's all linked to the inclusive approach. You know, it's not just about measuring profits; it's about measuring a whole series of performances, and the same thing applies for D&I at board level. So it does matter.
Thank you very much, Gerald. And I don't know if I may turn to you. You've been an executive director for a number of years. In your experience, have you, and I know that's a topic that you feel very passionate about, have you seen the benefits of increased diversity and inclusion in the business?
sorry. Thanks, Joanne. I will not repeat the ideas which Gérard and yourself have already said. There's a lot of data, of research on the matter. Perhaps just to mention one point, I believe that with diversity, you can have an environment, a work environment, which make employees and officers of the company work in a happier environment, which will reflect on the work that they produce and which will inevitably also influence the customer experience. Otherwise, you know, I entered the corporate world 20 years ago, and it was very, very different from what it is today. I hear women complaining about getting onto boards today. I agree that the numbers are not there, but it was much worse in those days. I think today it's far easier for women to be able to enter the boardroom and to get into boardroom discussions. And I'm pleased to see that evolution, but there's obviously a lot more to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna. Afsa, what more can we do? I mean, I'm sure we're not doing enough, but concrètement, what more can we do to contribute to make D&I a reality in Mauritius?
See, the challenge we have in Mauritius is what I call on talent. It's not only that we need the best talent in Mauritius and within each organization. If you want to have the best talent at your disposal, you need to just go for the best skills. And that's the only criteria you need to recruit. If today you look at probably one of the leading companies in the world, Microsoft, about 50% of its employees come from diverse minority background. I don't think this is by policy. This is more by necessity of having the best talents. I don't think at any point in time, Microsoft just look at the measurement, they look at the best talent and they take them on board. We need to do the same thing as well. But the problem we have is, I'm still trying to find out why this is the case. If you look at all the statistics, be it academic results, be it the number of people joining the workforce, there's predominantly more women than men joining, especially in the financial services sector. So at least everybody's joining. That's it. That's the starting point. And people are progressing. But where there is a bit of a, I won't say glass ceiling, but for some reasons still unknown to me, they don't make it to the top management, let alone to the board. So why is this huge talent pool getting into the workforce and suddenly not being in the top tier of the management? People make it to the middle management, but they don't make it to the senior management. Gérald just given some very interesting quote about his own organization, which I think is commendable. He has got to 20% ownership. But I'm sure there would be a lot more women working in EY at different level. And why suddenly it doesn't happen? And this, I don't know. And like Aruna was saying, there's a lot of data, but unfortunately, we don't have enough data in Mauritius. Why is this happening? Because people are getting in, but they are not making it. Is it, I don't think it's anybody's policy to discriminate. Something is that should happen is not happening. Probably there's need to have a sponsor which gives the people the right assignments, the right skill base, so that when they come for the final push, they are not only in the running, but they are capable of taking the challenge. I mean, it's a process. To be at the top end, like Aruna said, she started 20 years ago, it was different. She has made the journey because she has also been given the opportunities and the difficult assignment to get to where she is. And I think everyone needs to have probably a sponsor in the organization that do train people so that in years to come, they get to the top. Unfortunately, this is not happening, and I don't have the answers to why it's not.
Thank you, Afsa. If I may just briefly contribute to that, it hasn't been so much my experience in Mauritius, but certainly when I was working in London, we had exactly the same problem at the law firm that I was at, big Magic Circle law firm. 50% trainees coming in at the junior level, and then 1 or 2 making it to partners. And certainly at the time, the main issue was that when the woman starts to decide to have a family, they are made implicitly to make a choice. They are basically, there's this untold accepted truth in the workplace that your career needs to take a step back when you start a family. I think things have evolved, and especially with the pandemic, it's brought things into focus that now we have more hybrid working, we have more remote working. You may not need to make a choice. And talking about inclusion, I think that forms part of inclusion. To make people feel that you're in a more inclusive environment, you have to make the woman feel that you can be a mother and a career woman, and we're going to support you in that. I think that is the important piece in that. So Aruna, I don't know whether you agree with that analysis, or has your experience been different as to why we end up very thin at the top?
No, I agree with your analysis, Joanne. I think I was a little bit lucky in that when I started my career very young, brave, courageous, thinking I could conquer the world, I got married a little bit late. So, and I had my child when I had already actually formed a team to support me. So I was lucky in that way to be able to go away, look after my child, and delegate a lot of the work. Although I have to admit, during the 3 months maternity leave, I did some meetings at my place because I got bored and I was in a hurry to get back to the office. But it certainly helps when you form a team to whom you can delegate a lot of work and you do more supervisory work. That helped me enormously. But I think with regards to the wider definition of diversity and inclusion, there needs to be a change of mindset. We are in Mauritius, a very small society, and even though we have listed companies, they are after all family companies. And there is some habits which are difficult to break. There is that feeling of comfort of not wanting to lose control over decision-making or the control of the board. That's not easy to live with, even though healthy tension in boardroom discussions can be very conducive to business. So that change of mindset needs to happen. And I feel that it's not happening fast enough for many reasons. The pandemic didn't help. But when I compare again boards today with boards 20 years ago, we've made a huge leap forward, but we still need to carry on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aruna. And Gérald, I think some of the challenges have been, or issues have been highlighted, and you mentioned the threshold that has been attained at EY. In your view, what are the challenges in making this a reality?
Yeah, 2 things, Joanne. One, I think the pandemic has changed the world for the long term, and that's for the better. You know, if you told me 5 years ago that I would have partners who don't work full time, who don't come into the office every day, I would have said no way. I would have. It was not conceivable. In today's world, we not only it's current practice, but I think it's there to stay. And I think this will give our female contingent the ability to reconcile their life as a mother and their life as a professional in a much easier fashion than we've had in the past. So Afzal is absolutely right. It's like a funnel. You know, in fact, we have a majority at junior levels, a majority of female workers. But as people go up and you know, work becomes more demanding, the dropout rate has been too high. But I think with the last 2 years, the flexibility at work that we now have, what we all call the work-life balance, and the ability of fathers to to stay behind and look after the kids, and I think that's a great change for the better. That's my first point. But the second point is more negative. Is about constraints. And I hear my clients when they plan their board compositions looking ahead. I think there's a shortage of quality skills. And I'm not saying Mauritius is small. You got to avoid conflict of interest, so you can't sit on 10 different boards because they're very much involved in similar activities. And there is today a shortage of available diversity, and not just male female. I think it goes beyond that. We need to have a better database, better populated database of available talent, people willing to to take the challenge of going on boards of directors. And I think it's, I don't know, maybe your board of good can do that. And I know the Institute of Directors has a database, but I'm not sure how geared it is towards sort of doctors and environmentalists, for example. We need different profiles. We've got too many of the same profile on board of directors today.
Joanne, I would like to step in. May I?
Mm-hmm. Sure, of course, Abza.
I think focus quite a lot on board, because I think that's the showcase of a company. And the reason why we are having shortages is because the pipeline is not taken care. I think we need probably to take a step back and make sure that we have the right diversity and the right gender at senior management level first, which we are not having. You see, we are losing too many people at the C-suite level. If we start having more female CEOs, more female CFOs heading the organizations, this will help us getting more better directors at board level in years to come. But if we are not having the quality at management level, we are not going to have the right quality at board level. I think there's a gap, and we should stop losing people on the way to the top. I think that's where we need to give the right support and have the right sponsors so that we have the right caliber people at management level. And frankly, a lot of time businesses are losing competitive advantage. It's not because the board is not functioning, it's because the management is getting weak. And this is where we need to put the right support.
Thank you, Abza. Yes, of course. Please carry on.
In a couple of discussions I've had, be it with wearing NCCG hat or some other organization hat, with the regulators, I've been pushing, especially knowing that women have career breaks and so on, that they focus on doing some courses to help women get back into the work stream once they've done so many years and the kids are going to school. They're a bit shy about it, and I think we should consciously be pushing them. For example, the central bank does a lot of training at the moment on compliance. FSC is doing the same, and to help those women get back, be trained, have some better skills, and then get back into the workplace. That would be easier for women to get into the pipeline, to going further up. And I think I don't understand why in some of the conglomerates where you would have about, say, 50 to 100 companies, surely you have women at management level, say the top one management level is one, at management level 1 or 2. And beyond the holding company, underneath, you would have a lot of subsidiary companies. And why isn't there a conscious effort on the part of the company to actually get those women who are management level 1 and 2 to join the subsidiary boards? There would be nothing extra to pay, but these ladies would actually get a chance to sit on boards, see how boards are working, understand the working of boards, have a try at it, and be better equipped to be able to go higher up. I mean, it's an easy solution, right? And the other thing I've been thinking about, and which I'm going to voice a little bit more, is to ask big conglomerates, surely the chairman of boards of big holding companies and chairman, and I use men to say person, and the chairman of, for example, the audit committee or even of the governance committee, usually in those big boards, you would have, they would come with, the board packs would be quite voluminous. And if each chairman could take a protégé, like a mentor, act as a mentor towards one woman in the company, we spot one, and they work for 18 months to 2 years with that lady. And the lady then, that woman actually helps go through the file, discuss with the chairman about the board issues that will be discussed. And then she gets a chance to sit on the board. She would not vote, she would just observe. That would bring us way ahead. I think in a year's time, that pipeline will be filled with women with beautiful skills to be able to step into banks boards, for example, or financial services boards, and that would be easier. I'm not sure why we're not doing that. Those are quick and easy solutions, right? Thanks.
Yes, I fully agree with you, Auna, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about mentoring, because at least that's been my personal experience ever since I started working my career back in London all the way through to Mauritius. I think one of the main factors that has helped my progress in my career is having a mentor, who doesn't necessarily need to be someone who's your or actually shouldn't be your direct boss, but having a mentor either within or outside the organization is definitely fundamental to helping to make this a reality. Now, before we move to the final question and start taking questions, I think I just wanted to get a quick reaction from you on quite I think can be a controversial question. What do you think about positive discrimination? Afzal.
I don't think that's correct. It doesn't lead to the right talent. You know, at the end of the day, you need people with the right skills and the right talent. You start with positive discrimination, you start legislating about it, then you will start accepting people who are not the best, but with the right profile. And I think that's where the downfall starts. Because the ultimate criteria has to be the best people for the best job. And if you start discriminating against any other criteria, then we won't go very far. I give you a very simple example. Just look at two countries, Malaysia and India and Singapore. Malaysia has had clear positive discrimination policy. And we know the results today if you compare the two countries. We don't need to go any further than this.
Thank you, Afzal. Gérald?
Yeah, I'd like to go a bit further on this and take the example of South Africa. You know, when South Africa came up post-apartheid with affirmative action, it was difficult to accept, you know, because it's unfair. You're promoting people on the basis of their race rather than merit. But with hindsight, and we have the benefit of hindsight today, it was probably the right thing to do, you know, to bring back some kind of fairness in the whole system, because there was so much unfairness before. So when I look at South Africa as an example of positive discrimination, what they call affirmative action, I think it's been an enabler for inclusion, and we've seen that in EY. In fact, you know, I'm very closely linked to our firm in Africa, to the South African firm, and today we have Black ownership statistics that would have been impossible to think of had we not, you know, have the rating, the BEE rating, and so on and so forth. So I think it's worked in South Africa. Accept the principle of what Afzal was saying is absolutely right. You know, meritocracy has to be the guiding principle in life. But when there's been serious, you know, discrimination and disequilibrium for whatever reason, I think it's a good thing to impose. And I think in Mauritius now, public companies have to have women representation on boards. And I think we will probably head for stronger regulations in that field to reach more equity. Because if you allow it to happen naturally, it will take a lot more time. We'll get there, but in generations rather than years. And I think it's important we do it in years rather than long term. So yeah, not 100% aligned with Afsa on this one.
Thank you.
And I will take our own example. It's in life you get what you measure, and if you don't measure D&I statistics, you don't focus on it, and therefore, unconscious bias kicks in. At EY, we do measure D&I. In fact, I get challenged a lot around our own statistics, and once you start focusing on getting the right mixes and so on and so forth, you accelerate the process.
Yes, thank you, Gerald. And I think it's been interesting to have your two separate views on it, and I'll see what Aruna thinks about it. But I've always been, until a few years ago, and to some extent still now, a staunch opponent, like Afsa, of positive discrimination. And I remember being once told off about my views on it. But I think since then I've realized it's not about discrimination per se, but the lack of opportunity. I think that is what that is, in one sense, how positive discrimination can help. It gives opportunity to those who wouldn't otherwise have access to that opportunity. Aruna, before we end off, before we start with the general questions, what are your views on positive discrimination?
Strangely enough, in Mauritius, women are opposed to positive discrimination. Any system of quota, they don't like it. I was very surprised. Once I was in a conference, and the majority was against me. So to come back to reality in Mauritius, I get the feeling if you bring things like a voluntary target, and some companies are already moving in that direction. If you look at MCB and Cell Group, they have already expressed their targets with regards to gender parity. And I think with a little bit more push, we can get companies to voluntarily come out and set their own targets, which, as Gerald was saying, it's important to measure, a bit like the Alexander Hampton report review, which we have in UK. For me, I'm working towards getting companies to work on voluntary targets at the level of the NCCG. That is what I'm going to recommend with the charter, a bit like what we have in the UK. Because with peer pressure between companies, I feel that companies which are at the moment not doing anything about it will be forced to move in that direction as well. Thank you,
Aruna. I think it's a good balance.
Johan, just one last point since you started. Sure. I'm a big fan of Richard Branson.
Yes, me too.
He said that the top 3 criteria for a successful company: you have to be employee first, your customer second, and your shareholders third. Because if your shareholders are happy being the third one, everything else falls into place. You can't force people to do good. If they don't do good, the business won't be there.
Wise words, Afsa. I think we've only got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to kick off with the questions. There's quite a few of them. So I'll start with, let's see, probably Gerald, because you're in private practice, so you have clients who are potentially on some of the top companies in Mauritius. So question number 1. We tend to see many board member composition matching the ethnicity of the main shareholders. Could you touch on cultural and ethnic diversity on boards of top companies in Mauritius?
Yeah, I agree with the statement. It's not a good thing. In fact, it goes beyond the ethnicity. It's very often, as Aruna was alluding to earlier, it's very often family driven. So you will have a majority of people from the same family. And that's because there's a kind of obsession in this country on control and having absolute board control, as opposed to bringing a lot of talent, a lot of diversity, a lot of different backgrounds onto your board for the betterness of the company. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And you know, this session today is part of enabling the change, bringing the change. You know, I would say 2 years ago, D&I, when I would talk about D&I with clients, they would frown. They didn't know what it was. You know, the acronym D&I. Now it's very widespread. So I think the pace of change is accelerating, and that's a good thing. And in fact, I had a private discussion with the chair of a very large group recently, and I was challenging him on the composition of his own boards, and it was interesting to hear. You know, it was there is openness to arguments and you know, talking about it. I haven't seen the implementation yet, so I can't vouch for it. But you know, it's the sort of discussions that did not occur before. It was a bit of a taboo, you know, to talk about the, you know, you mentioned age, Joanne, when you started the, you know, and one of my points was, you know, you can't have, you know, above 60-year-old people, you know, running a company that's talking about innovation. Innovation is young, you know, you need young people to bring the innovation. It clashes with age generations. That's just an example. So I think big work in progress, but moving in the right direction.
And Afzal, you've also been in private practice for a long time, and obviously now through KIC Advisory, you service a number of clients. What are your views on this question?
I think the board has improved, and there's very much a willingness to get things better and things aligned to international standards. There's a lot more independent directors on board to bring the sort of balance. And more importantly, what we are seeing now is even some boards have got foreign directors to bring that international flavor to the board, because most of our large corporates are looking to expand internationally, and it's important to have people with the right skills. The only thing where I feel we are lagging behind is on the technology side, because technology is taking over almost every aspect of the business. And I don't see CIOs, Chief Information Officer or Chief Technology Officer at board level. And I find it very difficult for a board to sanction or approve a huge investments in technology without having any director on the board who is technology savvy. I think that's on that part we are falling behind compared to some other companies. We still have a bit more bias towards more finance people on the board. But I think this is about to change, and we need to bring the right skills. But like I said, the talent pool needs to improve as well at management level. I think if we get the balance right at that level, it will sort itself out at the board level.
Thank you, Afzal. And I think that to piggyback off the comment you made about bias towards finance people, we have a question, and I'd like to ask that to Auna on, for example, at the Board of Good, there are 250 women registered to be potential board members. But time and time again, the majority of requests and adverts that come out ask for board members with a finance or accounting background or legal background. And most of the time is to chair the audit and risk committee. So, Aunak, how can we change this? How can we make space for women leaders with, or not necessarily women, but leaders in general with a more diverse skill set at the board level?
I think, as both Afzal and Gerald were saying earlier on, change is happening very fast, especially with the pandemic. And this matter of diversity and inclusiveness is becoming more and more something we talk about, and companies are becoming conscious that they need to do something about it. I think each company is not the same, and one solution would not fit all. It would help if companies were to appoint a diversity and inclusiveness champion in their group that would then look at the circumstances of that company and what priorities could be there, and then draw the roadmap that would bring in more skills, talents, and that variety that we're looking for. I think companies, I've heard too many times businessmen telling me, who sits on boards, telling me not enough pool of directors, women directors. As you're saying, the Board of Good has got a lot of accountants and lawyers. This is what comes through when they ask. If, for example, companies were to take some action on their side as well, as I said before, getting their chair to mentor one candidate that is spotting one candidate, be it women, a woman or man, with a variety of skills that they then mentor, that would help bring diversity. Putting those women from different backgrounds onto subsidiary boards to acquire skills and to understand how board works would help and would bring greater diversity. And by doing so, I think sometimes it's the unknown. They know the accountant population, they know what to expect from the legal population, but they don't know what to expect from a woman technology person. They don't know what to expect. They're afraid that we talk too much. I think on boards, if you go for a marketing person, they're afraid that a woman might be making a faux pas. But I think we need to open our minds a little bit more, try, bring some new spirits on board and then see, You can always not renew their board membership next time, but at least you tried.
Good idea. No, I agree with you, Auna, and I don't know where the time's gone, but it's almost 7 o'clock. So I'm going to ask one last question from you, because this is obviously a webinar from the Board of Good. We've had a slight focus on women, but as we discussed, diversity is not just about gender. However, because we've got presumably a lot of young women who've longed on today, what single piece of advice, apart, you mentioned a number of good advice, Auna, as far as mentorship, but if you had to give a piece of advice to a young woman who wants to make it to the C-suite, what would it be?
Joanne, sometimes with women, they're not very daring. You always have doubts. When you have a tall order in front of you, you have doubts, and then you are not sure. Men don't think that way. And I think we need to be more daring. When I compare myself 20 years ago to now, I have more doubts now. I'm a bit more than I was then. Then the world was out there. I could reach out to the world and do everything. That's what I thought. And I think women really needs to be more daring, asked to be alternate directors, asked to shadow, asked to be mentored, and just go for things you've not tried before. Worst thing is you'll fall a little bit, you'll burn your fingers a little bit, and then you'll get up again. So let's try to take more risks.
I fully ascribe to that, and I think definitely we suffer much more from imposter syndrome than men do. Afzal?
Well, I would quote what Indira Nooyi, the ex-PepsiCo CEO, said: the opportunities are there, you have to go and grab it yourself. It won't come your way on a silver plate. Just go out there and get it. It's there. Opportunities are there. Just like Aruna said, go out there and get it yourself. Don't wait.
Gerald?
Yeah, I have two advice to give. One is about your skill set and your expertise. At the end of the day, boards want to have diverse skill sets. So refine your skill set, your expertise, and make it known. Don't keep your expertise as a secret. Make it known. And linked to making it known is the importance of networking. It's really important that you are known to people, and that that you have your own brand, basically, that you build your brand, your personal brand, I mean. And I think with those two, we're going to see a lot more young people coming onto boards of directors and senior C-suite positions.
Thank you, Gerald, and I fully agree with you concerning personal branding. I think with the increased use of social media, we now have the tools, the space. We've always had a voice. We've never been encouraged to embrace it and use it. And I think there are now tools that we can use for personal branding. Thank you all for this very insightful discussion. Thank you for your time. I hope the participant enjoyed it. I think the recording will be available to listen to later. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.